In this episode, I will be freeze framing certain frames because the frames need to be frozen because there are numbers. Hello everyone, my name is Joe. Welcome back to me analyzing Silo Season 2 and possibly deriving a bunch of delusional theories. The episode starts with Bernard in a very well lit room looking through Juliette's visor and seeing what she's seeing as she enters the silo, and this is what we saw last episode. Now you might be asking, where is Bernard? Where in the silo is this suspicious, dubious man? Well, Bernard is inside the damn bunker room, and I mean, have I not been paying attention to Silo Season 1? Because I don't remember this room in the previous season. I need to rewatch it. Anyway, I've been lost in Arcane. I will get to that video, okay? But yeah, Bernard is inside the bunker door that we see in episode 1 in the other silo, so we can assume that the person that is inside the other silo's door is the previous, the mayor from that silo. Or at least someone in an important position that knows about the existence of the door and whatever other secrets lie behind it, beneath it, beyond it. It could be someone else apart from the mayor because we find out in this episode that in the current silo, Judge Meadows also knows about the door. And I don't know, they both seem to have secrets and they both seem to know things they're not saying. And I think there are other people in the silo that know way too much that they are not sharing with everyone else, but we'll get there. The thing is, while we're watching Bernard, watching Juliette going into the other silo, we also see this room. It's a very different room from the rest of the silo. It's designed in a different way, it's more curvy, less sharp. Strange sentence, but it is. And it's a lot more well lit. It's clearer, it looks cleaner, it looks like it's not been used a lot, and it looks like it continues somewhere, behind wherever Bernard is watching, looks like there's corridors that lead to possibly another room. So maybe the guy that is on the other door in the other silo is actually living inside the door because there's quarters or, I don't know, some livable space. But another thing that you notice, apart from the clearly different design, more futuristic, advanced design of that part of the silo, another thing that you notice is these little boxes, these little kind of P.O. boxes, kind of like bank boxes that you see on the sides of the part that is here. And I mean, they only show us that because they want us to notice. Otherwise, they would just show a close-up of Bernard watching Juliette. And what do we see on those side panels that seem to open? We see numbers. Numbers. I'm gonna put a screenshot somewhere here. We see numbers, and in my mind I'm thinking, is this supposed to be related to the various levels of this specific silo? Or are the numbers specific to the other silos outside? And do they have inside the numbers? Because the number seems to be on a little door that kind of opens up as if it was like a bank box door. How do you call those things? A deposit box. It looks like a deposit box. And what if that is the means of communication they have with the other silos? That they open the little deposit box door and there's a red telephone. I don't know. It's not a red telephone for sure, but there's a means of communicating with the outside. That's my first thing. I couldn't help notice that. I paused, and I was looking at everything in that frame, which is not much because it's a very clear space and very clean as well. However, another thing of note in this scene is after the feed from Juliette's visor cuts and he can't see anymore what she's doing, he looks down into a manual, which is the manual supposedly left to him by the founders, and he opens up to a page that says, in case the person doesn't clean, prepare for war. And I was thinking, how common is this? It wasn't like, it wasn't added to the original text. You know, it wasn't like they built the silos, they built the code or the guidelines for the silos, and then as time went on, certain difficulties happened, and they started adding on certain notes, like, sometimes people don't clean, prepare for war. But no, it's printed. It was planned like this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, for how long? For how long have you been doing this silo social experiment, this silo post-apocalyptic societies, whatever it is? For how long have you been doing it that you have experienced periods where people don't clean and you know that it leads to revolution? How often, for how long have you been doing these silo society experiments or whatever it is? For how long? But what is also interesting is something that Bernard says later on to Judge Meadows. He says that even though there is an instruction for what to do if a person isn't clean, prepared for war, prepared for people to revolt, there is no instruction for what to do if someone walks off the mountain, the hill. So, doesn't this sound like an experiment? Doesn't it sound like this is a new rule that they would add to the next, like, code or procedural manual? Doesn't it look like that? Because I feel like all of this information must be going somewhere to prepare the next silo. And this is what I was thinking when I was trying to figure out why the guy behind the door was still behind the door. Because what if there are procedures for this? And if a silo loses everyone, if everyone goes outside, or, I don't know, someone goes ballistic and takes out everyone in the silo, what if there is a procedure from whoever is in charge of the silos thingy? What if there's a procedure that they have to wait there behind the door, they have to save the information from the silo and whatever it is that is behind those doors until someone comes to clean everything up, to put everything back together and start a new silo? How long? Right? Couldn't that be happening? And I'm still thinking of the city, the city that we see in the horizon, that it has to be significant, otherwise, why show it? But anyway, after Bernard loses the connection to Juliette's visor and he opens a little book to see the instructions, he comes out of the door and he passes by servers. Servers, drives, there's servers. I think it's what you call them. You call them servers, right? Drives. Those big techie things that store a lot of information. And I was also questioning this. Are these servers for the silo? Or are they for whatever is behind that door? No, it has to be the silo, because in the other silo, we see that they are destroyed. So if the purpose was to store information that is behind the door, they would be behind the door. So let's forget that. And what happens is that when they see that Juliette goes over the hill, they go into emergency protocols. A big red siren starts going off, everyone goes to their houses, and Silo is in crisis. But freaking Bernard pulls a 180. This man, I load this man. Load him. But he is smart. Kinda. But before we get there, I need to mention the tape. Because in my previous video I was like, was it the tape? Was it like she saw a sensor? It was the tape. I didn't remember that from season 1, but yeah, Juliette had this not special, she had a proper tape that they used down in mechanical, I guess. And they just switched it. They switched the tapes and she had better tapes, so she lasted longer. The poisonous air outside, and then when she got into the silo, she closed the door behind her, and that was enough, I guess. She must have still been exposed to some form of radiation, which is what I imagine is outside. Because when she washed herself off, I mean, there was no way that was enough. So maybe we will still see some consequences to the exposure that she had, maybe not outside, but from some contact with the suit that couldn't possibly have been that clean from that yellow orangey ass water. But anyway, it was a tape. And the cool thing about episode 2 is you see the dynamics of the upper levels and the down below levels, and you start to see how the gears are turning, both from the upper levels trying to keep the order and from the downstairs level, from the people below thinking of revolution. And of course, it's the people who are in the worst conditions, who have the worst, most dangerous jobs, that immediately think that they need answers. And if there is just a possibility that they can walk outside and not have this shit-ass life, of course they're going to want it. And of course they're going to want answers, because the people who are in the upper levels and have the cushiest life, the most privileged life, are a lot more willing to be like, I didn't see it. Can I have a warm meal? Upstairs, we have Bernard trying to contain the situation and trying to convince Judge Meadows to be on his side. We have the scary guy from Judicial taking control of the security measures and insisting with Bernard that he wants to be his shadow, even though we know and Bernard knows that this guy is not good for leadership. He's going to be a dictator if he comes into leadership. So I think in a way Bernard is trying to convince Judge Meadows to be his shadow, and it's all dynamics. And the thing that turns Judge Meadows to Bernard's side is the 180 this man pulls. And the thing that he does is he gathers up the entire silo. They are all outside in the stairs listening to this man talk. And he says that before Juliette went outside, he approached her and said, "Baby girl, you want to try some new tape that we've just created, in the lab that doesn't exist, or in the lab?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'll do it for mankind." And she goes outside with a new tape. The new tape works perfectly well, and Bernard announces it as a victory to the development of the silo, one step further to going outside safely. And he just takes the win for himself, as if he was the one who decided this since the beginning. And in that moment, Judge Meadows is like, "Okay, I'll side with you. Let's go. But with one condition, I want some of that tape." Good decision, Judge Meadows. Good decision. But also, the thing I have to mention about this speech, you guys should go see it. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. If you have watched it, go watch it again. Because this speech, and I'm crediting this to the actor because it very much seems fabricated that way. Like, it seems like he acted it in that specific way on purpose. But this speech was so silly. It was silly. Do you know what it is? It's Dwight. Dwight from The Office, when he won that award, and Jim gave him a bunch of speeches from dictators in history, and Dwight emulated them and won over the crowd because he was doing like wild gestures with his hands while giving the speech, and he was saying like, "We shall go outside with this new tape," stuff like that. This is the way Bernard delivered the speech. It was so cartoonish. I mean, loved it. And it's just so funny that you can be so decontextualized from what reality is, from what common sense is, that you hear a speech like that and you believe it. And it isn't really that you believe it. It's just that you want to believe it. So you just look away to any kind of vibe that you get that something is not right. Oh, and what else did Bernard do in this speech? The man hired hecklers to be like, "Oh, you're lying. How can we believe you?" And then he would have a prepared response for the hecklers. You cannot say he's not smart. But anyway, that's what's happening upstairs. Bernard bought himself a few more days where people won't revolt immediately, but then downstairs, people don't buy it. And we see a very great example of how the dynamic up downstairs is very different. And Juliette's bestie, I can't remember her name. I keep calling her Moira because she reminds me of Moira from The Handmaid's Tale. I can't call her Moira, so I'm gonna call her Juliette's best friend. Juliette's bestie is like, Juliette's not dead. They are lying. She resisted because of the tape. I know this is true. I'm going to organize the revolution. And they start organizing the revolution, but there are like two forces downstairs. It's Juliette's bestie and Juliette's mentor. Juliette's bestie wants blood. She's out for blood. She wants to go outside. She wants to go rescue her friend. The Juliette's supervisor, he's more cautious. He's like, we only get one shot at shutting down the silo as a protest. He goes to the guy who makes things, who makes machines or fixes machines, and he's like, if anyone comes around here asking for weapons, don't do it. Don't. Like, he's trying to maintain the peace downstairs. He wants revolution, but careful revolution. And actually, when he goes to the mechanical guy, he asks for one other favor that we don't see. And I'm suspicious. Traitor. Yeah? People who read the books, let me know. Is he traitor? But anyway, downstairs, that's the dynamic. There's two people, they both seem to want revolution. One wants blood, the other wants careful revolution, which will happen never. But okay. And then there is a third force downstairs. Walker. The old lady who was truly the parental figure to Juliette. Walker, I don't know if it's because of her age and her experience. She seems to know more than anyone in that silo, and my delusional theory about Walker is that she's not from there. That I don't think she's from that silo. I know this is insane. I know. I understand. But something about the way she acts inside the silo, to me, is similar to the way that Howard and Judge Meadows act. As if they know a little bit more than everyone else. As if they know a little bit more about what's going on with the silos. Because I think she knows about that. I don't know, I can't explain to you why I have this feeling. I just don't think she's from that silo. And I think she knows she's not from that silo. I feel like the most delusional that I'm going to be today is saying that I feel like she comes from way, way, way upstairs. Like the people who know about everything, what is going on with the silos, why the silos, how everything happened, what came before, what was before, what is the actual purpose of this. I feel like she knows. You know, like in The Maze Runner, when finally a girl appears and it turns out she was working for the people behind the Maze Runner. I feel like it's something like that. At some point, something happened, she was demoted and she found herself in one of the silos. But she is not from there. That's what I think. Because we also get this reference, oh my god, I was forgetting about this, when when Bernard is talking to Judge Meadows picks up the book, The Wizard of Oz, and she says, in the end, this is just basically a guy that is hiding behind a bunch of cheap tricks. And before she explains that she's talking about herself, that she thinks of herself in that way, what I immediately thought was the person who is behind, or the people who are behind this whole thing, are that person, just hiding behind some cheap tricks. Because, you know about that game, the game of the villagers and the wolf, that the village goes to sleep, and the wolf kills someone, and then the village wakes up, and the village has to figure out who the wolf is. This game was invented by a couple of Russian students, apparently trying to prove that most of the time, a minority who controls the information will always win. So couldn't it be what we're seeing in the silo and in the silos? That the majority of the population is inside the silos, but they have no idea what's happening. They don't have any information. So even though the minority outside is controlling the silos, they are the ones who have all the information of what's going on, and maybe they really are hiding behind some cheap tricks, but they can, because they are the only ones who know what's happening. Tell me it wouldn't be a fun one. Come on. We all like to see the evil guys being revealed. Maybe they're not evil. I don't know. And the last thing I want to mention before ending this video is this one thing that Judge Meadows says to Bernard, because Bernard says that his speech only bought him a few days, that things will still rile up. Bernard says to Judge Meadows, if this doesn't work, there's always brute force. And Judge Meadows doesn't even react. She's like, yeah, it only lasts so long. They talk about their people as if they are just pawns in a chess game, and they're just looking for the best way to move them around, but they don't really mind sacrificing some here and there. It's... I hate it, but I love that the show shows this, because, yeah, I believe that. I believe that political leaders, or the majority of political leaders in our world, look at us as chess pieces. They don't really care if 1 or 2 or 1,000 or 30,000 get killed, if it doesn't bring them any negative consequences, or if it doesn't bring them enough negative consequences to stop. Yes, you will always find me making parallels between TV shows and real life. Always. Thank you for watching. Like, comment always. Because I want to hear your delusional theories, and I want to hear what you think about my delusional theories. Because they are, say it with me, say it, excellent, excellent. Bye.